Hi, welcome to today's webinar, Resolutions Only the Most Successful E-Commerce Sellers Make. My name is Dane Moorfield. I am the Senior Manager of Design and Solution Partner Marketing at Bigcommerce, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. And today I am joined by a panel of industry experts, including Chad Rubin, CEO of Skubana and founder of CrucialVacuum.com, with James Thompson, partner of Buy Box Experts and president of the Prosper Show. And finally, Brent Belm, CEO of Bigcommerce. Before we get started, just a couple of reminders. All attendees are on mute for the duration of the webinar. We will host a live Q&A in the second half of our discussion, so feel free to submit your questions at any time using the GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a replay will be made available to all attendees and registrants after the webinar. So with that, let's get started. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Chad Rubin. Chad, over to you. We seem to have lost Chad. James,
Sure.
Let's go ahead, and I am going to kick it your way. So here's James Thompson.
Sure. So thank you all for joining. This is an unusual opportunity to use the start of the new year to talk about some of the aspects of running your business and the sorts of things that you might think about doing as a successful seller. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things that sellers do today that lead them down the wrong path or result in them spending a lot of time working on activities that may, in fact, not be productive. And prior to doing the things that I do today, I used to work at Amazon running Amazon services, working with literally tens of thousands of sellers, and I watched these sellers make a lot of mistakes, a lot of the same mistakes over and over. So what I want to talk about today is specifically around the idea of looking at your costs and how do you use information about your costs to drive a much better view of your overall business, and from that be able to take much more granular operational steps to making your business much more fluid. So Dane, if you could turn to my slides, specifically on the costs. I think slides 17 or 18 to start. So when I think about the successful seller understands where they're making money and where they're not making money, and then they can focus more of their time on the activities that make money versus the areas that make only Amazon money today. So let me give you an example. Well, let's say you're a seller, you're doing $1 million a year in sales, you've got 100 different SKUs in your catalog, you're selling a lot of product. At the end of the year, or maybe at the end of each quarter, you look at your numbers, you tally them up, and you say, okay, great, we did this much in sales, we have this much in profit, it looks like we're growing our business. Unfortunately, the vast majority of sellers spend a lot of time selling products that, there are a number of products that don't make money, and so they sell these products, it helps the top line, but it not only doesn't help the bottom line, it may actually take away from the bottom line. So my philosophy of looking at the process of selling on Amazon is you have to think about every single SKU in your catalog as being a separate P&L. Do you understand how much money you're making selling that particular product? Do you understand if it's making you money? Do you understand what the all-in costs are at the SKU level? When I think about a SKU level profitability model, that is to say you understand your profits at the SKU level, when you have that level of insight, you're in a much better position to be able to do sourcing and have discussions with your vendors and be able to say, I want these products but not these products, or here are some specific products that I've been carrying in the past, unless we change the costs at which I buy these products from you, it doesn't make sense for me to continue to buy these. So think about SKU level profitability insight drives better sourcing decisions, much better on day-to-day vendor management decisions. From that, you can make better decisions around the inventory that you will carry in the future, as well as the inventory you carry today, making decisions around which products to get rid of and never carry again, which products you may continue to carry but only with certain types of cost changes, and then which products you absolutely want to continue to stay in stock on because, quite frankly, those products drive a disproportionate amount of profitability to your bottom line. So if you could flip the page, please, to the next page. With SKU level analysis of your costs and SKU level analysis of your revenues, there are often a number of costs that we don't typically look at. And when we think about the more sophisticated seller, that seller understands how to allocate overhead costs. They understand how to incorporate FBA return fees and different types of write-down or write-off costs, as well as any type of processing cost that they might have to be able to take in a return, examine it, potentially test it, and then put it back out on the market for resale. I want to focus specifically on the overhead costs because this is one of the easiest steps that we can take. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. There we go, thank you. If a seller understands all of its overhead costs and has an appropriate way of aggregating those numbers and then separating those numbers out and allocating them back out to the individual orders, what they'll typically find is that there may be $1.50 to $3 of cost, somewhere in that range is pretty common, $1.50 to $3 of overhead cost that has to be applied to every unit of product that's actually being sold. So if you're selling a product for $20 and net after all the Amazon fees, you find that you take home, say, $5 of margin, but you haven't allocated your overhead costs to that yet, you're actually over predicting that you're anticipating you're making more money than you actually are on those products. What I've found working with a number of sellers is that when they start to allocate in their overhead costs, even if you take a peanut butter approach and you say, here's all my overhead costs, I'm going to evenly spread it across all the units I sell. But what happens is if you start to apply the overhead cost to every single unit you sell, you'll find that a number of the products you sell today don't even cover their overhead cost. That is to say, selling that product, you're actually better off not selling that product than selling that product. So we'll talk about that in just a moment, a specific example. So what happens if you don't include some of these, what I'll call hidden or less obvious costs to figuring out what your profitability is? As indicated here at the bottom of the page, you have too much of the wrong type of inventory that doesn't make you money. More importantly, you end up spending your capital on inventory that isn't making you money rather than having it available for higher margin products that will make you money and deliver to the bottom line. The other aspect that's often overlooked is if you don't understand your costs at the SKU level, you're essentially letting all of the suppliers dictate the terms. That is to say, they give you the rate sheet and you say, yep, I'll take this, and this, rather than being able to say, here are 5 of the products that I buy from you, Mr. Supplier, and while they sell a lot of units, the way the costs are structured today and because of the return rates or because of some other aspects around that product, I'm not able to make money on that. So unless we can change the way that the cost structure is set up, it doesn't make sense for me to continue to carry those products. So if you can level things out and put yourself in a position where you're using information to negotiate better with your suppliers, you're in a much better position to make sure that your efforts are going to drive profitability. Finally, in summary here, if you work really hard and you grow your top line, you better be growing your bottom line at least the same rate, if not faster. Otherwise, you're just making money for Amazon. You're not making money for yourself. And that was one of the most common themes that I saw during my tenure at Amazon, is watching sellers get very excited about growing their top line, but really not understanding where their bottom line was coming from and what they needed to do to be able to grow bottom line at a disproportionate rate. So if I could flip to the next page, please. Great. So if you understand at a very high level what are all of your costs, and you can allocate those costs down to the SKU level, including overhead costs or some type of return-related costs. I could talk about this for hours and go into excruciating detail, but the summary idea here is know your costs, allocate them out to the SKU level, update those costs on a regular basis because your cost of running your business may in fact change over time. If you've got the ability to invest in software, like a good inventory software, like what Chad Rubin will be talking about in a few minutes, if you've got good software that can help you track the costs, be able to update it over time, you'll be able to keep a better sense of what it's actually costing you to run your business and hence make better decisions around the specific SKUs that you carry in your inventory. And then finally, if you've got good data, you'll be able to act on the data. And that puts you in the driver's seat to be able to make better decisions and course correct on a regular basis rather than having to wait till the end of the year when your accountant says, yes, you did actually make some money, but we don't really know where the money came from. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Chad, and Chad will take us through some of the specific aspects of working with Amazon in order to drive different growth opportunities.
Thank you, James. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. I'm actually tethered from my phone right now. My Wi-Fi cut out exactly at 2 o'clock, so let's back it up. Can we go to the beginning slide? So we're flipping it around, everybody, today. We went through profitability first, but the question is, how do we compete in an Amazon world? Amazon makes it really, really simple for you to just get on their platform and to never leave. So I consider it kind of a gateway drug. So 40% of product searches happen on Amazon today, and 60% happens off of Amazon. Everyone gets very caught up on Amazon because it's so easy to sell on Amazon. They make it super easy. You know your commission costs, you know what your inventory costs, you know what your sales cost is. So they've created a dependency for a lot of the people I talk to. So if we go to the next slide, the typical seller.
Yeah, Chad, I just add to that looking at Bigcommerce merchants, there are several thousand of them that are selling both from their branded website today and on marketplaces like Amazon and eBay. We reached out to a significant sample of them to figure out how their sales break down, and on average, about half of their sales are coming from Amazon and eBay in particular, and about half of their sales are coming from their branded website. So this is for those merchants who are the most sophisticated at optimizing on both at the same time. That means if you are an Amazon and eBay seller today without a branded website, you're probably missing out on half your potential sales. Or alternatively, if you're somebody with a branded website but not actively selling on Amazon and eBay, you're missing the other half. You need to be on both in an integrated fashion if you want to maximize your sales on the web.
Absolutely. A lot of the sellers that I talk to, and I talk to tons a day, this is the typical revenue profile I see. They sell on Amazon US, maybe they scatter themselves in a little bit of Canada, a little bit of the UK, but a lot of the people that I'm talking to are selling just on Amazon. So if you look at the next slide, my thesis, and I think we all share this thesis, is ways to protect your nest egg, your egg, to essentially diversify yourself, not be just caught up on Amazon, maybe to go deeper on Amazon, but also build a brand off of Amazon, which you can easily accomplish with Bigcommerce. So the way that I've done it is that I've built a private label brand 9 years ago with Crucial Vacuum, and I actually used to be 100% of my revenue was on Amazon, and I've managed to actually diversify that down to about 40% of my revenue. So I've done that by private labeling a product, which gives me a higher margin profile, but also building an entire business off of Amazon across many different marketplaces, including my own shopping cart, which is my second biggest sales channel. So if we move to the next slide, so we're talking about picking your battles with and your spots on and your battles with Amazon. So picking your spots on Amazon, my thesis is to be building a private label brand. So I'm all about going direct to the consumer with my own brand, and it's the way to compete and to not have to compete and on price or to win the buy box. And how I developed and came up with a lot of my products is I try to solve a real problem. So I like to think about the world around me and friction points. How often do I walk around life and think, okay, why does it have to be that way, right? Why does vacuum filters that are made of paper and plastic have to cost $17, and why do I have to sell them for $21? So I've started with vacuum filters, which is very unsexy, and I've moved into more of my passions. So I'm really passionate about coffee. In fact, I have coffee with me today, so cheers. I started making coffee filters, things that interest me, and focusing on a super niche. So think about things that are friction points, things that annoy me, but also focusing on something that's a very large niche that I'm actually solving an itch and scratching it. And I want this to be collaborative. So Brent or James, if you guys want to have a discussion on some of these or chime in, please feel free.
Well, I think the point you're making is that if the brands you sell are also sold on Amazon by Amazon itself or other sellers, marketplace sellers on Amazon, then it becomes this death battle to win the buy box based on price predominantly, but the other factors that Amazon cares about. Whereas if you have your own individual brand, then you can own that buy box because you've got your own SKUs. You're the only seller of that particular item. And then your choice is whether you want to supply Amazon or you want to sell independently. And you can make those based on your business model. Typically, you'll get a lot more margin if you sell directly. But that's the advantage of having your own branded goods, is that you can then, you are your own little monopoly within your niche, and you're competing with your brand against other brands, not within a branded listing against others.
Yep. Exactly. You not only own the buy box, but you own the entire supply chain. So you dictate the rules versus a supplier dictating the rules to you.
For the typical Amazon seller that spends a great amount of time trying to figure out how to make the product page look the way it wants to, but unfortunately finds itself with 20 other sellers contributing content, when you build a private label page or a private label product, you can control that content, and you can make sure that the content is actually locked down the way you want, and the products you're selling are representative of what you're trying to communicate to customers. So there's lots of good advantages here in terms of building a private label business for the Amazon seller.
Exactly. The biggest gold nugget at the bottom, which is my mantra, is solving a problem but doing it better, faster, cheaper, and direct to consumer. So Crucial is a great example of that, right? I didn't create the vacuum filter. I didn't create the vacuum. What I've done is I've iterated on the vacuum filter and have made it better, faster, cheaper, and going direct to consumer, with 80% of our filters being washable. But I've chosen an approach where I'm selling on multiple different channels and building a brand versus just a private label. I think a lot of sellers get caught up in this web of just building a private label brand or a private label non-trademark name on Amazon. Instead, you can focus on building a consistent brand across many different channels.
I agree completely. With the higher margin that comes with a private label product, and you actually being the manufacturer as well, you're in a better position to understand all of your costs, all of your return rates, and be able to do something effectively around if you have to make changes to your manufacturing in order to alter your pricing and your cost structure. You're in a much better position to do that. So there are lots of great things that come from building a private label product. We could have a whole discussion about how to do this effectively, and there are lots of ways that people build private label products in a very lazy manner, but to the effect that you're willing to make the investment and do it properly and get registered and invest in proper packaging and UPCs and all this kind of good stuff, you can build yourself a very sizable business. But as Chad mentioned, don't build it just on Amazon. The reality is customers on all different channels have many of these same friction points, and they're looking for better solutions than what exists today. So to the extent that you diversify beyond just the Amazon or other marketplaces, and you think about your own website, and you look at ways that you can use your own website to complement what you're doing on some of these larger marketplaces, that will help to create a consistent brand across all of the online channels in which you sell.
When I first started Crucial about 8 years ago, I was competing for the buy box, and I thought to myself, why do I have to do this? Why the price? There's no end to the floor. And so I decided to early on, and the private label game has changed dramatically since 8 years ago, to create my own brand. So initially I started with Crucial Vacuum, and I've moved into Crucial Coffee, Crucial Air, and we're working on a final brand now. But the end result of that, when you're choosing your spot on Amazon, building a brand, is that you don't have to compete for the buy box. Far higher margin profile. You own the supply chain, you own your own intellectual property, but it also allows you to go off Amazon. Okay, so the next phase really after you've got your brand is picking your battles with Amazon. So my thesis as an online seller, because again I used to be 100% tied to Amazon, is I want to be everywhere on the monopoly board as I possibly can. in order to win at Monopoly, and I love that game, in order to win, you need to own the railroad, the utility, and Park Avenue. So I discovered that there is life off of Amazon. So if 40% of product searches happen on Amazon today, what everyone forgets to understand is that 60% happens off Amazon, and you get to own the customer at the end of the day. So I like to be everywhere. I sell on 15 different channels along with my own shopping cart. It's super important to diversify yourself and not get just stuck in the web of just going down the rabbit hole and exploring deeper into Amazon, but look at life outside of Amazon.
Yeah, you know, I would, I think of the names and brands that you had on your page, Chad. Really, for most sellers, Amazon and eBay are 80-20 rule. And depending on the category, a seller might get real mileage out of a Rakuten or a Sears or a Newegg. But for an awful lot of sellers, Amazon or eBay are the big deal. Now, the question becomes, how do you actually diversify if you start on one of those? It used to be the case that if you started on eBay, you could then adopt eBay stores and get your own branded website. Well, the problem is eBay closed eBay stores and referred all the merchants to Bigcommerce. Amazon similarly had a stores platform that it's also shuttering. And so that option of starting on one marketplace and adding your own branded site has gone away. By the way, I was at eBay for almost 10 years, and back at the point in time when they launched eBay stores, I wish they hadn't. I think that they wasted 12 years when they could and should have instead been focusing on integrating with third-party marketplace manager solutions and third-party commerce platforms. Well, the choice you have now as a merchant, if you want to sell on these, is, you know, either number one, the worst solution is you just have redundant channels. You manage Amazon independently of your own website, independently of eBay, which creates tons and tons of duplicate effort, missynced inventory, orders that get confused. Some people do that, but it quickly becomes operationally a disaster. Option number two is that you utilize either a marketplace listing service or even better, something like Chad's platform Skubana, which combines the ability to list your products on multiple marketplaces and a website, as well as manage the inventory and cost structure across all of those. Now, you get that with Skubana because they have the inventory component. You get just the listing part if you go to a Channel Advisor or a Sellbrite or a Channel Unity. The way Bigcommerce fits into all of that is, you know, if you're using a Skubana, for example, or a Channel Advisor, Bigcommerce is the branded website part of that. You point your inventory to Bigcommerce, and you can create a stunningly beautiful store. We work really, really well with Skubana and some of those other platforms. The final thing that is coming is for somebody who is really focused just on Amazon or eBay and has a relatively straightforward business model, we at Bigcommerce are building direct integrations into Amazon and eBay that would allow somebody to take items from their store catalog, publish them directly on Amazon or eBay, have inventory synced, you can manage pricing and content uniquely for those other channels. And we're trying to do that in a way that's better than has ever been done before. There are no, today, commerce platforms that have native world-class integrations with eBay and Amazon. We want ours to be the first one and the best one at that. But that will never, that will get you live and very successful on those. But we will always be behind in the breadth of platforms like the ones listed here, Sears, Newegg, Rakuten, and as well as the integrated inventory management. When you really want to get into the big leagues, that's where a Skubana or a Channel Advisor comes in.
Awesome. So just to chime in off of what you're saying is that selling off-channel is difficult. It's not easy, right? Amazon makes it easy to stay on their platform and to never leave. And that's what I find sellers most often doing because they don't know that a software out there exists that will change the way they do business forever. And I actually started Skubana based on my itch that I need to scratch. It was based on a problem that I had that I couldn't find in the marketplace today. So there's a lot of tools out there, but there's no solution that put it all together. So there's a lot of solutions out there. I suggest everyone do a ton of research to sort of cut through and jujitsu a lot of the noise that's out there. But of course, if you ever want to talk to me and talk shop, I'm here to help at Skubana and help you save money, hair loss, and a whole lot of time. So the idea is you need to have the right foundation to build a house on, right? So you got to have the right operational system in place so you could accelerate your business off channel.
Can I just say another word or two about what you think makes Skubana better? What can your solution do that you don't think the others can?
Well, to do what Skubana does, you need 10 different tools to make it happen. So instead of duct taping them together to make it happen, we become the unified platform, and we do it for a fraction of the cost. So we unify operations with shipping together for the first time ever, where now you take everything that you're doing in one place and you have data to extract from that. So Skubana becomes the central nervous system of your entire business. And on James' point of SKU profitability, Skubana actually calculates what your SKU profitability is across every single channel, so you know exactly if you're making money. So the power of data now, they say data is the new bacon. Well, the power of this data that's in Skubana right now is tremendous and allows you to actually extract insights from it and execute in ways that you've never seen before.
Is it fair to say that the difference, one of the big differences in that dimension is because you're both the inventory management as well as the catalog and listing service, that you have insight into that full profitability, whereas a channel advisor or a Sellbrite or somebody else would not?
Well, first, I suggest everyone do a ton of research on this topic. Skubana is an operational system to run your business. So everything after the checkout. So not only is it order management, any way you fulfill your orders, whether you print shipping labels, integrate to a 3PL, drop ship, do FBA, multi-channel fulfillment, we do it all in one place. Then on top of that, we do inventory. Right? We have the most sophisticated overselling prevention mechanism. We have people on our platform that do thousands of orders within 15 minutes of an API. And so we actually prevent people from overselling, which causes suspension on Amazon. On top of that, we have automated purchase orders and then analytics. So these softwares that you're claiming, they're very entry-level softwares, but they're not operational systems for a power seller. So building your website, there's a lot of choices, and this is definitely Brent's domain. I certainly have a lot of experience in it, but I want to pass the mic over to Brent to kind of talk about how Bigcommerce is different from a lot of the other players that are in the space and help people make the right decisions.
Sure thing. So you can really split your options for your own website into 3 buckets. The far left one is the world of SaaS, or cloud-based commerce systems. We're one of the 2 leaders for cloud-based commerce in the SMB market and the market leader for mid-market among SaaS platforms. The benefit of SaaS is that you don't have to become an IT company to manage it. When you use SaaS, you don't have to worry about upgrading your software. The SaaS provider does that continuously and automatically. You don't have to worry about bug fixing. They do that. You don't have to worry about hosting. They do that. You don't have to worry about DDoS attacks. You don't have to worry about security. You don't have to worry about PCI compliance. And in general, the SaaS platforms do a far better job of those things than the other options of installed or on-premise software. For example, the average merchant on Magento, according to the information they supply to Internet Retailer for the top 1,000 merchants, has a self-reported uptime of only 99.5%. That means that they're down approximately 2 days a year, typically at peak web times or when new code is pushed. And they're constantly fighting not to be worse than that, whereas our merchants are up 99.99% of the time. That's a pretty consistent number. Every month I've been at the company is 99.99%. They were up 100% of the time, all 60,000 plus stores during Cyber Week this year and Cyber Week last year. So lots of ingrained operational benefits to SaaS. The other benefit is cost. The average cost of installed or on-premise software, at least in the Magento case, is about 4 to 6% of GMV. If you're developing your own code, it's an in-house build, that can be 5 to 10% of GMV. Whereas the typical cost of SaaS for a small merchant is 1 to 2%, so about 80% less. And for larger mid-market merchants in the, call it 1 to 50 million sales range from their store, it can be as low as 50 basis points, right? So it's an 80% cost savings relative to those other platforms. Now, if you go with open source or you go with packaged or licensed software, the benefit you get is customizability. You basically control and can start customizing on top of that. As you do that, your ability to upgrade it starts to go away as you're stuck on a particular version that is the version you own. But you can customize to your heart's content. Increasingly, SaaS is taking share away from those on-premise options because the ability to customize within SaaS is going up very dramatically. And today, that's why very few SMB merchants pick packaged software. The vast majority making new platform decisions are going with SaaS. And in the mid-market, which is still 80% on-premise, there's every expectation that it will go to majority SaaS as well in the next few years. By the way, even at the large end, Demandware shows that a SaaS platform can be competitive against the likes of IBM, Oracle, and SAP. It doesn't have to be a decision about control and functionality versus lower cost and ease of implementation. Demandware at the high end, Bigcommerce in the mid-range now give most merchants all the customizability that they need, along with all the benefits of SaaS.
I'm actually on board the SaaS model. I love SaaS. I think it's the future of e-commerce for shopping carts. I can tell you from my own personal experience of having an open source model, it is extremely expensive to maintain. And I love focusing on my core competency, and so removing myself and having a SaaS model, having a hosted turnkey model allows me really to focus on what I'm good at, which is marketing and building a business versus having to work on bug fixes.
We should talk and get you over to Bigcommerce.
My one question I think that would be helpful for people on the call today, because I know that it's a very crowded space in the SaaS space. Can you clarify, like, at least help people point them in the right direction if they are looking at a few different SaaS players, so they can understand the differences?
Yeah, I think it really is pretty simple. If you're an SMB customer, meaning under $1 million in sales from your branded website per year, there really are just two market-leading platforms, Bigcommerce and Shopify. And the conventional wisdom, this is the web topping, not me, is that you pick Shopify if what you want is a beautiful theme and simplicity and ease of use. You pick Bigcommerce if you're a larger merchant or trying to become a larger merchant and you need advanced functionality that will grow with your business into the tens of millions of dollars. That's the conventional wisdom. And the one thing that I think is really changing in that is the whole point about design and themes, in that we are rolling out our new theme platform and custom design engine called Stencil. It's in beta. It goes live this month in a couple of weeks. And for a whole bunch of reasons I won't go into the detail on, it's market leading. It's better than what Shopify has by a very extensive margin. It's frankly better than what you can do with Magento. Either our pre-designed themes or the ones that a merchant would build will be faster converting, better converting, faster loading, with a ton of benefits built into it, like staging environment, access to live catalog in the staging environment, simultaneous rendering across mobile desktop and tablet, and the ability to work in common code languages as opposed to having to use a proprietary language like you would with Liquid on Shopify. So I think if what you want is true ease of use and simplicity, there are benefits to Shopify because it doesn't have as much advanced functionality. But if you are really focused on building a business you need functionality that will scale with you into the many tens of millions in sales, then by far Bigcommerce is the best platform to look at.
Great.
When it comes to the topic of this conversation, it's interesting because none of the SaaS platforms, frankly, any platform today, has a native world-class integration built into it with Amazon or eBay. And if that is something that you want, and you're willing to limit yourself to just those two platforms, then I'd say get on Bigcommerce because we are building that. Or alternatively, if you want to sell on lots of marketplaces simultaneously, you can get that with a supplier like Skubana, use Bigcommerce as the store outlet, and have that all tied into your order management and inventory management, which is a super powerful way to go.
Cool. So for the Amazon sellers that are on the call today that are looking to move and diversify off Amazon, the next step is, or the question is, do you just build it and they will come, or is there hard work and heavy lifting to do? And the answer is there is heavy lifting to do. That's why they call it business. So the first step is trying to figure out what's going to work for you. And especially if you're a private label seller, I suggest testing with Google Adwords. That's really the first place. That's what comes to mind when you're looking for a product. Is you either go to Amazon or you go to Google. So when I first started testing with my private label products, I started playing with Google and getting those orders, and they would come into my shopping cart. Now, the nice thing about Skubana, by the way, just to chime in, is that you can do multi-channel fulfillment. So actually, you can do multi-channel fulfillment from your FBA inventory and get it sent over to your off-channel, quote-unquote, customer if you're selling through Bigcommerce. So Google is a great way to allocate a lot of your dollars and to build your brand off of Amazon. I also have gotten involved in social media, and I read a great book called Jab, Jab, Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. It's fantastic and changed my perspective on marketing in a millennial generation. So Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, you got to pick your battles and choose what's appropriate. So for vacuum filters, which is not very sexy, you don't want to post to Pinterest. Nobody is interested in looking at dirty vacuum filters. However, Crucial Coffee, people love showing shots of their espresso that they just pulled or their coffee that they pulled with our coffee filters. The same thing for Facebook. We found our niche on Facebook was nesting mothers. And so when you're about to give birth or you give birth, you want to make sure your floors are clean. So we market specifically to those groups on Facebook. And a lot of what I learned can be read upon, and we don't have so much time to get into it, but there's a lot of different ways for you to win business when you're selling off of Amazon and to build it. It does take hard work, but it is out there. To the point where, again, I've taken my business from 100% and have cut it in half from Amazon. So another thing I do a lot of is affiliate marketing. So I go after mommy bloggers, like I mentioned, or allergy sufferers, or coffee enthusiasts, and every time a blogger sells our product, they get a percentage of the revenue. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of what you could do. You just have to pick your option and go with it. If you're private labeling, the first and easiest way to testing your product off-channel, to just dipping your toes in the water to see if it's warm, is to use Google Adwords, specifically product listing ads on Google.
The thing I'd add on this page is social networks, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook have all announced their plans in the last couple of months to commerce enable their ads, meaning you can have a buy button embedded in a product tweet or embedded in a pin on Pinterest or a Facebook posting. And for merchants who want to take advantage of that in their marketing, and I think anybody would who wants to market on those platforms, today there are only two platforms that all three networks picked to launch with their buy buttons, and those are Bigcommerce and Shopify. If you're considering or on installed software, it is unlikely you're ever going to get access to those. And the reason is that in all three social network cases, the actual checkout is hosted by the social network. It's hosted by Facebook, Pinterest, or Twitter, meaning they are collecting the buyer's personal information and credit card number but then the transactions get processed through the merchant software. So there has to be a PCI compliant integration between the merchant and Facebook, and separately Pinterest, and separately Twitter, in order to engage in commerce on those platforms. If you're a Bigcommerce merchant, you automatically have those because we are creating that integration with all three of them. If you're on installed software, you have to get in touch with Facebook and say, I want to integrate, and then they will look at your ad spend volume, and if you're not Best Buy or Walmart or somebody spending a fortune, they'll say get in line, and you may be in that line from now till kingdom come. The point is you have to do individual integrations with each, and none of these three companies are specialists in integrating with merchant checkouts. In fact, they're all brand new to commerce. So it's hard enough for them just to do the one-time integration with Bigcommerce in each case. So again, it's an advantage you have if you pick Bigcommerce as your store platform. And let's say you're using Skubana or you're just directly uploading your catalog. Once your catalog is in Bigcommerce, you can then choose any individual items or multiple items and post them to Facebook, to Pinterest, to Twitter, and have those commerce enabled, whereas it would not be outside of a solution like ours. Okay, I think we already did the cost and the profit discussion, so we're now to Q&A.
Okay, so thanks, guys. That was very informative and very helpful. We have a large group on the call, and we have several questions that have come in. The first one is for Chad. Our question is, I have never built a private label brand myself. How should I think about starting the process?
So it goes back to my first slide, which is really finding an itch that needs to be scratched. So I teach a course in New York City on e-commerce, and one of my students came in and she said, I want to create a bobblehead toy. Well, is there a need for a bobblehead toy right now that people want to buy? So instead, going after problems that you need to solve is the best approach, where you're creating an atmosphere where you're pulling versus pushing on people. And that's what I've done with all the brands that I've built, and all the brand building and private labeling that I've done is solving problems that exist out there today.
Okay, great. Our next question is for Brent. Brent, the question is, I see most growth opportunities for my business on Amazon. Why take the time to build my own website when Amazon already drives so much traffic to my products?
Again, 44% or 43%, as Chad said, of consumers start on Amazon. For the other 67 or 57 who start somewhere else, they're not going to find your brand if you're only on Amazon. If you really want to maximize your sales, for sure, you need to be on Amazon, you need to be on your own website, and you probably want to be on eBay. It's not that hard to do, as long as you're on a platform that enables the simultaneous selling on both. For a lot of merchants historically, it seemed really hard because they would set up and try to run their branded store independently of Amazon, which again means two catalogs, two sets of pricing, managing inventory in a way that's not synced. It's kind of a mess. But if you make smart platform decisions and are set up in a way that you can have a single catalog, list at multiple places, but manage your orders and your inventory centrally, then it's pretty easy. And like I said, you double your sales. On average, you're going to double your sales if you're selling simultaneously on the leading marketplaces and from a branded website, relative to doing only one or the other.
Brent, if I can add to that, during my time at Amazon, we did surveys of Amazon sellers, and we found that when you look at the top issues that they are highlighting as problems for their businesses, one of the top issues over and over and over again is the fear of being suspended. And to the extent that their accounts get suspended and they have no other business on any other channels out there, realistically, they have no business at that point. Whether that suspension is warranted or not, if there's nothing else out there, they haven't diversified elsewhere, this is not just about building your brand and creating a broad-based communication message to all sorts of sellers, or excuse me, all sorts of customers everywhere. But it's also about making sure that you've got diversity so that you don't end up waking up one morning and discovering that you're no longer selling on Amazon.
And I can speak by personal experience. I've been suspended from Amazon. In fact, I was away in Greece and got the notification at 2 a.m. that I was suspended for overselling inventory. And so the first thing that I did, of course, was to appeal it. But then my next action plan outside of Amazon was, how do I make sure this doesn't ever happen again? Which was how Skubana was born, but also how I started actually selling off-channel and making Amazon a less percentage of my revenue.
Okay, thanks, guys. The next question is for James. James, are there specific solution provider tools that can make a big difference to making my business more efficient?
Well, we can create efficiency in all sorts of different spaces. Certainly, when we're talking about multi-channel sales, we've talked extensively about Skubana and being able to have a multi-channel inventory solution in place that allows you not only to keep track of inventory across all the channels you sell, but also derive the necessary data, whether that's cost data, whether that's inventory data, sales data. All of that kind of data is really what you should be looking at to help drive your business. So when we talk about becoming more efficient, I think about efficiency as ways of having to invest less time in your business but still get the same level or if not more insight in your business. So if you get better data out of what you're doing, and you can do that through tools like Skubana, where you're getting a comprehensive view of all the different aspects of your business, that's how you drive overall efficiency in your business. Yes, there are all sorts of other types of solution providers that can help you with other parts of your business, but at the core, you need to have an underlying foundation that drives all the different parts of the business. And I certainly think that inventory order management software is going to be the most important way to drive efficiency. Think of all the inefficient things that a seller can do today. Things like spending huge amounts of time keeping track of inventory, huge amounts of time wandering around their own warehouse trying to count pallets, huge amounts of time trying to keep track of whether returns have come in or not. All that kind of stuff is low value and can be easily replaced with software that does exist today, that works well, that makes you much more efficient so you can work on your business rather than working in your business.
Okay, great. Thank you. This question is going to be a jump ball. I'll toss it up there and see who'd like to take it. The question is, I've heard selling on Amazon can be tricky. I do have my own brands, and I'm currently selling to Amazon. Do you suggest we sell on Amazon? If so, why?
I can take that. Well, the nice thing about having your own brand is you get to decide how you want to leverage that brand and sell it across various different channels. So for me, with Crucial, I sell on Amazon. I do a little bit of selling to Amazon as well, and I do that. It's essentially a little bit of a hedge. So I think you should really be analyzing your business. The most important thing I can say about it is that by selling direct to consumer, my mantra, which is better, faster, cheaper, and direct, there's a whole lot more upside and margin that could be had by selling direct to the consumer, getting as close to the consumer as possible and as close to the factory as possible so you can take all that upside and pass on those savings to the customer.
I mean, certainly if I had my own branded goods, the question is there going to be, do I sell for the wholesale price or do I sell for the retail price? And if you go direct, you get the retail price minus Amazon's 15% commission. And if you sell to them, if you sell to Amazon, you're going to get the wholesale price, which depending on your category might be 40% off retail, 50% off retail, 60% off retail. And so just think if you have that option, I would go direct, especially if there aren't other wholesalers or retailers that you sell to that you would then have to compete against on Amazon. If you can control your brand on their platform, the economics are there. And I guess the one reason not to do it is just operational efficiency. It may be a lot easier and cheaper for you from an operational standpoint to sell in bulk to Amazon, let them fulfill individual orders as opposed to having to do that yourself and stay compliant with all the heavy hurdles. Because at least if Amazon's doing it, right, they're the ones who are staying compliant with Amazon rules. If you're doing it, there's a risk you mess up and get suspended.
So Brent, I need to pipe in here. This is what my company's day job is. We actually help brands to sell direct. When we say direct, help sell as third-party sellers on Amazon, so that all that operational complexity that you're talking about, we take care of that for them, and they're able to take in the retail margins rather than the wholesale margins. And so for a lot of brands today that are selling direct to Amazon, meaning they're selling to Amazon retail, they're reevaluating that, saying, wait a minute, I don't have good control over inventory. I don't have good control over product content. I don't have good control over pricing. I would like to have control over all those things. And so we're having conversations with those very brands who are saying, please give me back control of the things that are important to me. And we're helping them do that by moving from 1P to 3P and being the seller of record on Amazon. So it's a very interesting model where Amazon has actually created the opportunities for the brands to leave Amazon retail and go over and be third-party sellers. Yes, there's some nuances that have to be worked through, but it's very, very doable even for large-sized brands.
And by the way, Amazon encourages that. You know, Amazon knows that the best way they can grow is not by getting 3 more suppliers of the same brands that are already sold on Amazon. It's by getting suppliers of new brands that aren't on Amazon at all. So they want to make independent sellers successful, and it's up to the independent sellers with their brands whether they manage the channel themselves successfully. And so, talk to Chad, learn how to do it well, and get the margins yourself.
Okay, Brent, this question is for you and Chad. How do we deal with diversifying on Bigcommerce and Amazon without upsetting our other retailers who also sell direct to consumer?
Wow, that is, it's a question that in my career goes back to 1998, back when I was in the early days of e-commerce, and I was a retail consultant at McKinsey, and I did a bunch of projects on this exact question, where we'd be advising branded manufacturers about how to manage channel conflict. And at the time, the conventional wisdom was, geez, if you sold through retailers like Walmart, it's a long time before you're going to be able to get away with going direct and not be turned off. Well, that long time has passed. It's now 17 years later, and it is the rare brand that can't rationalize and defend going direct with a subset of its product. I'll give you an example. Chapstick, the lip balm company, it's the first of Pfizer's consumer health brands to go direct, and they're doing so on Bigcommerce. Now, they're not selling all of the run-of-the-mill individual lip balms that they would at Walgreens and through Walmart and other places. They're coming out with limited edition, special seasonal flavors for the real aficionados. And they rationalize by saying, look, volumes are small, we're testing new flavors, we're connecting for the first time directly with our consumer. Before, they never had that direct interaction, either in a database or a commerce perspective. Maybe they come up with special packaging. This is the stuff that they're doing, and they've been able to pull it off despite predominantly selling through the largest retailers on the planet. We have another Fortune 500 company that I won't name because they're just about to go live. They have never sold direct to consumer or business, end unit business in their life. They have always gone through wholesalers or retailers. And they're going direct for the very first time, again on Bigcommerce, and this is a Fortune 500 company that everybody would know their brand name. We are now in the point of time where I think most brands can manage it, but the more sensitive your situation, the more you want to find a subset of your inventory that you can rationalize as being, for purpose X that doesn't directly threaten the bulk of sales and profits from your channel, because you've got to respect your channel. You can't risk that. But do it in the name of becoming a better supplier. Talk about what you're testing and learning from selling direct to consumer and how that's going to make the products that you sell that much better as they then go mainstream through your channels.
Brent, if I could add, there's a counterpoint to this whole discussion, and that is most brands today don't proactively manage the online channel. They don't proactively manage who are the resellers, who's controlling content online. It just sort of happens. And so if you are a brand that does have product being sold online and you're choosing not to proactively manage who's allowed to sell online, who's in charge of making sure the content gets put there, who's actually managing to make sure that we don't have MAP price being violated left, right, and center on Amazon. If you're not doing those things, then you do a disservice to your brick and mortar partners who are following the rules. And so for many brands who decide not to be attentive to the online channel, they actually end up hurting their overall distribution strategy. And that's one of the challenges that we work through with our clients is how do you take back that control so that you can then have a proper discussion with the partners who are following the rules and say, look, we are going to test certain products online, but we're also going to give limited distribution for online sales to only some sellers that are investing in us rather than just spraying a variety of products up online and seeing what sticks.
Okay, thank you guys. We have,
Dan, I'm going to chime in real quick on this because I have a lot of experience on channel conflict. One of the things I want to point out is right now we are in the midst of an entrepreneurial revolution. And now is the time that you're starting to see tons of traditional legacy markets become disrupted by direct-to-consumer brands. A few that we can point to would be Warby Parker, we can point to Bonobos, we can talk about Dollar Shave Club, or even Casper mattresses. So if you're not going to be the first mover in your industry, I promise you someone else is going to be that first mover and disrupt the industry. So now is the time to start thinking about evolving and moving away from the way that things have been and moving into the next generation of e-commerce, which is direct-to-consumer.
So thank you, guys. It looks like we're approaching the top of the hour, so let me take this opportunity to thank our panel of industry experts. And on behalf of Chad, James, and Brent, I'd like to thank you for your time today and wish you a prosperous 2016. And that's going to conclude our webinar for this afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.